Hi, and welcome back to Chloe's Magic Minis. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to do a muzzle burn, basically a hot metal effect. And to do that, I'm going to be using quite a few different paints and a very soft synthetic brush for dry brushing. Now, I actually am going to start off with this Vallejo Metal Azul. And this one is actually pretty bright, so I only want a very, very small amount of it. But what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm going to just take the front and just lightly dry brush some of that blue on there. And this is a wider brush, so I'm just going to use the very tip of it and turn it to its side just to dry brush some of that blue right on the front. And I want to make sure I get all angles as well. And because I'm using such a small amount of paint, my paint keeps drying, so I have to get a little bit more. But I just want to slightly dry brush just the front. And I am going to overlap these colors ever so slightly as well, too. So I'm just going to put a little bit right there where I'm going to put my next color, just to kind of blend those two. And I'm really not working with a large area here either. So I'm only doing the very front of it with the blue. So you start off like that. And I'm going to do my best just to get underneath slightly as well. Just a little bit right there. So that is your first step. Just a nice metallic blue. I know a lot of people actually use washes as well, but we're gonna use metallics today because I personally like the brightness of it myself, but I am gonna use a combination of different paints, and one of them happens to be a wash. So let that dry for a second. So after our blue is nice and dry, I'm actually gonna use a purple wash, and this one is a violet shade, Drushi Violet. I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, but we're just going to take a very small amount of that and go over the last color ever so slightly. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that purple wash and just put that right there. And you might need a little bit more right at the start, right where those two colors meet. And I know it's not super noticeable, but once it's finished, it'll definitely pop. So, like I said, I'm just going to try to get a little bit underneath, just like that. Could even add a little bit more there. Just remember to overlap the blue just a little bit. So there is your blue and purple start. Now this is going to take a little bit longer to dry because of those little areas right there. But once that's dry, we'll go in with our next color. So now that our purple wash is dry, I'm actually going to go in with a little bit of pure red, and that's just a normal bright primary red. Any will do for this. And I normally would prefer a metallic, however, none of my metallic reds, for whatever reason, actually come out red. So I'm just going to use a little bit of a regular red, and I'm just using a very small amount of paint. And I'm just going to gently dry brush with the thinnest part right over the purple where I left off, just like that. And you'll notice it changes ever so slightly, just gets a little bit warmer. And this is a very, very, very dry brush. And I'm trying not to go too much off camera for you guys. These angles are a little tough. So bear with me. And like I said, just get a little bit underneath. Just like that. I even want to come down over here a little bit and just put a little light layer for the next color to overlap. Just a little bit. It's going to make it even more orangey. All right, so now I'm going to go in with some weapon bronze. And I know, it should be copper. It's the closest thing I have to an orangey metallic. So that's the color I'll be using, but I'm sure actual copper color would probably work just as well. And same technique, very dry brush. I'm just going to overlap where I put that very light dry brush of red. Just like that. And all of these colors should be blending particularly smoothly together. Like it should be very, very light. And we have one more color to go, and we are almost done with the burned muzzle. And now I'm just going to go in with a little bit of Retributor armor, and that is just a very bright yellow gold. It is very, very warm. So I'm just going to take a very small amount of that, just wipe some off on my paper towel, and do our last color. Same technique. Just like that. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. And since this is our last color, I'm just going to take a little bit and just fade that out just a little bit, just to blend it with the rest of the gun. And there you have it, guys. Hot metal. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks hot. The one thing that I do have a problem with, though, and it's not my paint job, it's just the fact that I mean, the other one has like at least a little hole there, you know. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of black paint and just put a tiny dot there and there just to make that seem hollow. So I'm just going to take a little bit of black paint on this handy dandy tool I have, and I'm just going to put a little circle right here. And I know it's not perfect because the model itself has little tiny texture, but I can just fix that a little bit with a brush until I get a circle. Just like that. It just makes it kind of seem like it's hollow, like it's supposed to be. And I'm going to do the same for the bottom one. The bottom one shouldn't be too bad because there's really not a whole lot of texture on it. But it's better than just having it flat. At least I think so. And if you really want to, when that dries, you can get into a little bit of shading and stuff. That's not a big deal. But there we go. We have our hot metal effect. So I'm going to be doing a blood effect on his little chainsaw, and I'm actually using the Tamiya Color Acrylic Paint X27, the clear red. And this stuff is pretty cool. It's actually the first time I'm using it, and it really does look like blood. Like, I can't believe it. It's weird and shiny and liquidy, kind of like a wash, but I don't know. It's interesting, but I just wanted to start off by taking a little bit and putting it on top of the chainsaw, and I'm just gently gliding the brush across here, not with a dry brush, but I am using a heavy amount of it to kind of glob it on those little serrated edges. Makes it look like it was chopping something up beforehand. I could even put a little bit dripping down onto his hand, just like that. And this is completely preference too, as well. You guys don't have to put as much, or you could put more. It's really what you're comfortable with. So I'm just putting a little here and there. And I do want to try to splatter some on at a point of time too. Like maybe on his shoulder as well. Like you can see the direction that that goes, and it kind of leads to the back of his shoulder a little bit. Sorry, I keep going off camera. I apologize, but I just put a couple little dots there to mark where I want to kind of splatter that on. You can kind of see like where that chainsaw would lead that blood to that angle, like how it would splatter in that direction. And that's kind of where I kind of gauge where I want to put the paint as well too. Kind of just look at the shape of what's going on. But I kind of don't want to get paint on everything else, so I'm moving stuff around a little bit just because the stuff is pretty watery. I mean, it's supposed to be like bloody, so it's pretty accurate. But I'm just going to give him a little bath towel just so I don't get paint all over like the bottom of him, because I don't want paint all over him, just on his shoulder. And I set him down a little bit so it'd be easier for me to get at that angle. And I know it's hard for you guys to see, but I just put those couple of dots there before. And I'm going to take a pretty heavy amount of this too and kind of soak my brush in it so it drips off pretty easy. And I don't really want to touch this stuff because I feel like it's got a lot of pigment in it. It might stain my hands. So I'm just going to gently flick it with a toothpick just so I can get a little bit of specks of like little blood splatter. And I apologize, I had to do a little bit of that off camera because I could not see, just like you guys are having a hard time seeing, but that is what it should look like. Just very, very, very little tiny specks spread out, kind of where that would be spewing blood out. But there you go. Take your basic orc and make him a little fancier. And here is our finished orc. I think he looks very orky. And I kind of love it. I think he came out pretty good. If you guys think he came out pretty good, maybe hit that like button. And if you're interested in my next video, maybe hit the subscribe button. Just saying. I always appreciate you guys coming by and watching my videos. And I am new to YouTube. So definitely look for my next video. And enjoy your weekend, guys. It's been a pleasure. Till next time.